Thousands of years of tradition, thousands of years of guardians, philosophers, warriors, and peacekeepers, built temple by temple, generation by generation, across a galaxy of 1,000,000 worlds, and Palpatine destroyed it in an afternoon. A single encrypted transmission, 66 words, broadcast across hyperspace to every clone in the Grand Army of the Republic simultaneously. And just like that, the Guardians of Peace became prey. But history, as they say, turns on moments, small ones, invisible ones. A signal that flickers, a soldier who blinks, a chip that sparks instead of fires. What if the signal never reached them? What if, in the single most pivotal moment in galactic history, Palpatine's perfect plan broke? This is what if Order 66 failed. To understand why this changes everything, we need to understand how terrifyingly precise Order 66 actually was. Palpatine didn't just give soldiers a command, he engineered it into their biology. Years before the Clone Wars even began, Kaminoan scientists, under the direction of the mysteriously vanished Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, secretly manipulated by Darth Tyrannus, embedded biochips into the brain of every single clone at the embryonic stage. These weren't behavioral suggestions, they were neurological overrides. The moment that order transmitted, clones didn't choose to turn on their Jedi generals. The chip made the choice for them. This is important, because it means the clones were victims too. Now, how does it fail? There are several plausible fracture points. Let's explore the most seismic one. Fives, Clone Trooper CT-275555, ARC Trooper, hero of Umbara, the man who came inches from exposing the entire conspiracy and was killed for it just weeks before Order 66. In our timeline, Fives discovered the chips. He tried to warn everyone. He was silenced, discredited, shot down by a clone commander before he could reach anyone who mattered. But what if, just before he died, he got the evidence out? What if a single data chip containing the entire truth about the inhibitor program made it into the hands of someone like Padme Amidala or Bail Organa, or, and this is where it gets painful, Anakin Skywalker himself? What if Anakin knew? Suddenly, everything changes. This is the most emotionally devastating version of this scenario, and it's the one we're going to follow, because it doesn't just change the plot, it tears the entire saga apart at its seams. In our timeline, Palpatine manipulated Anakin through fear, fear of losing Padme, fear of powerlessness, fear that the Jedi were holding him back from the strength he needed to save her. But Anakin's turn wasn't just about power, it was about trust. He trusted Palpatine because Palpatine was the one person who never made him feel like a mistake, who never whispered that his emotions were weaknesses, who never told him to suppress what he felt. Now imagine Anakin receives Fives' evidence. He sees, in cold, documented, scientific detail, that the clones were weaponized, that the war was engineered, that the kindly old chancellor who mentored him for over a decade has been the architect of millions of deaths on both sides. Anakin Skywalker doesn't just get angry. Anakin Skywalker becomes a bomb. He confronts Palpatine, not with the Jedi Council, not through proper channels. Alone in the Chancellor's office, just like in Revenge of the Sith, except this time, Anakin isn't there to report a Sith Lord. He's there for answers. And Palpatine, for the first time since he was a young Sith apprentice on Naboo, doesn't have the right ones. Palpatine tries the same tricks. The Jedi wanted to betray you. I'm the only one who cares about you. Padme will die without my power. But Anakin has the receipts now. He's seen the chips. He knows about Sifo Dyas. He's connected the dots between Dooku, Tyrannus, and the Chancellor sitting in front of him. And somewhere in the Force, Padme is alive, and Anakin is not yet consumed by desperation. The duel that follows is nothing like the one Yoda fought in the Senate chamber. Yoda, ancient, wise, conservative, dueled Palpatine to a standstill. Anakin Skywalker, at the height of his power, described by Jedi Masters as potentially twice as powerful as Yoda himself. Palpatine doesn't win that fight. He barely escapes it, bleeding, weakened, his face not yet melted by reflected lightning, but his plans in ruins. Palpatine vanishes into the lower levels of Coruscant, into the shadows, into the sewers and the crime dens and the forgotten places where the Republic's light never reached. The Emperor who never was disappears, and the galaxy wakes up to something it doesn't know how to process. The Sith are real. They've been running the Republic for over a decade, and nobody noticed. Here's where most what-if scenarios make a mistake. They assume that defeating the villain means the heroes win. They don't. Because Palpatine didn't just control the Republic through dark side. He controlled it because the Republic was already broken, corrupt, bloated, paralyzed by bureaucracy and special interests, and a Senate more interested in trade disputes than justice. Palpatine didn't destroy the Republic. He was the symptom of it. So now, without him, what's left? Chaos. The Senate fractures immediately. Pro-Palpatine factions, some genuinely deceived, some deeply corrupt, refuse to accept the evidence against him. They call it a Jedi coup. They call Anakin a rogue weapon. They call for the dissolution of the Jedi Order entirely. Bail Organa and Mon Mothma scrambled to hold the moderate coalition together. They have the evidence. They have the clones, now freed from their chips, confused, grieving, many of them horrified by what they almost did. They have the Jedi, alive and furious, and finally understanding how close they came to extinction. But they don't have unity. And in the Outer Rim, where the war destroyed worlds and the Republic never really cared, a new voice begins to rise, not Palpatine's. Someone who watched the Republic fail its people for decades. Someone who lost family to clone wars and Senate indifference. Someone who looks at a broken galaxy and sees not a Republic to be restored, but a system to be replaced. The seeds of rebellion don't disappear just because the Empire never forms. They just find a different enemy. Because in this timeline, Anakin doesn't become Vader. He doesn't betray the Order. He doesn't march into the temple with a battalion of clones and cut down younglings in the dark. He saves the Jedi. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, his brother, his master, his greatest failure and greatest pride, has to reckon with that. In our timeline, Obi-Wan spent 19 years in the desert carrying guilt like a stone around his neck, believing he failed Anakin, believing the best thing he could do was watch over Luke from a distance and hope. In this timeline, Anakin is right there, alive, heroic, the man who exposed Darth Sidious and saved the Jedi Order. But the trauma doesn't just evaporate. Anakin still felt the pull of the dark side, still made choices that frightened him, still stood in that office and felt the rage, the pure, clarifying, terrifying rage of a man who could have burned the galaxy down if he'd wanted to. He chose not to. But he knows what lives inside him, and so does Obi-Wan. Their relationship in this timeline is not the warm brotherhood of the Clone Wars. It's something more complicated, more honest. Two men who love each other and are both quietly, deeply afraid of what Anakin almost was. That tension? That's the most interesting story in this entire galaxy. Never count out Darth Sidious, wounded, exposed, humiliated, but not dead, never dead. In the underworld of Coruscant, Palpatine begins to rebuild. He still has loyalists in the Senate. He still has wealth beyond imagination hidden across the galaxy. He still has the dark side. And the ancient Sith knowledge that no Jedi alive fully understands. And he has one more weapon. The secrets of immortality. Remember, Palpatine's entire pitch to Anakin was the promise that Sith knowledge could prevent death. Darth Plagueis the Wise, the ability to influence the midichlorians themselves. In this timeline, Palpatine doesn't need Vader. He doesn't need an empire. He needs time. And in the darkness, with nothing but centuries of Sith patience and a galaxy too fractured to hunt him properly, time is the one thing he has. He begins searching for the one thing that could make him invincible, a body that cannot be killed. So what does this galaxy look like, 20 years on? The Republic survives, barely, reborn as something smaller, humbler, more honest about its limitations. Bail Organa's coalition holds. Alderaan becomes the moral center of a restructured Senate. The Jedi Order rebuilds, but differently. They've learned the cost of their arrogance, their detachment, their refusal to engage with the political rot that surrounded them. The new order is more open, more human, more willing to feel. Anakin and Padme raise their children, Luke and Leia, on Coruscant, in a home, together, as a family. And somewhere in the unknown regions, in ancient Sith temples that no Republic cartographer has ever mapped, an old man sits in the dark, waiting, planning, certain, with the absolute certainty of a man who has played the long game his entire life, that the galaxy will, eventually, come back to him. Because the darkness doesn't lose when the lights come on. It just waits for them to flicker. The war ended. The Jedi survived. The man who would have been Vader never put on the mask. And somewhere in the dark, Darth Sidious smiled. Because Palpatine has always understood something that the Jedi never could. Hope is not the opposite of darkness. Hope is just darkness, with better lighting. He'll wait. He always waits. And one day, when the Republic lets its guard down, when the Jedi get comfortable again, when Anakin Skywalker finally believes the worst is behind him, the transmission will come again. And next time, there will be no one left to stop it. Subscribe. You won't want to miss what comes next.